We're going to start tonight's meeting with an invocation led by Commissioner Stewart. Please stand.
Thank you. Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for your grace and your mercy. Thank you for allowing us to live in such a beautiful place as Wakulla. Lord, I just ask that you grant each one of us up here wisdom tonight, guidance, Lord, that we would do the right things here tonight to glorify you. And we ask those things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any changes to be made to the agenda tonight?
I have one discussion item I'd like to bring up. It'd be brief.
Any other changes?
I have an item I need to add under my business as well.
Any additional changes?
Motion to approve with noted changes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Passes. Tonight we have 4 public hearings. The first public hearing is a request for board approval to conduct a public hearing and consider adopting an ordinance amending the Wakulla County Code relating to rates, fees, and charges for sewer service. Our county attorney, Heather Encinosa, will be leading that discussion. If anybody would like to talk at tonight's meeting, make sure you fill out a card in advance. If you don't fill out a card, you won't get the opportunity to speak. You'll get 3 minutes to talk after you fill out the card. And make sure you can pick them up and turn them in over here with Miss Katie Taff. Heather?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are requesting that you conduct a public hearing and adopt a proposed ordinance that would amend various sections of your existing code on sewer, and then adopting a proposed resolution to put those same rates into a resolution form. As it exists right now, your sewer code provides that you will adopt rates, fees, and charges by resolution, but then it includes them in the code, which is a little bit inconsistent. So what we have done is done a strike through to the various provisions of the code where you find rates, fees, and charges mentioned, and then embodied those rates, fees, and charges into a resolution format. The one exception is the dump fee for septic haulers, which was not found in your code and has been historically 2 cents, is being proposed, and this has been discussed with the board previously verbally, but is being proposed in this resolution to go up to 7 cents.
Make a motion to approve, conduct a public hearing, adopt the proposed ordinance amending sections listed below of the Wakulla County Code and adopt the proposed resolution relating to rates, fees, and charges for sewer, but taking out 6B that I talked to Heather about earlier. That's related to the extension policy. It needs to be what was in there that was adopted in 09 is the old one back from the 80s. There was a new one done in 2000, and it needs to be integrated into here. So I'd just like to pull 6B out of the resolution. 6B
currently says that for an extension that's more than 50 feet away, the cost will be $6 per linear foot, and Commissioner Merritt is that is in your existing code, but there is a more modern way to probably handle those types of extensions. So if you want to strike that from this resolution, we can bring back a extension policy for the board to consider at one of its future meetings.
$6 a foot won't even cover the engineering costs for a gravity main, so that's the main reason it was revised.
Okay.
Second.
Is there further discussion?
I had some questions. I understand that you're taking the rates out, the fees and the rates, and you've taken the CPI annual increase out as well. But there was one section that wasn't removed, and I wasn't sure why that stayed in. Under Section 5, Section 31.041, page 5, in the strikeout version.
Back it up page down to there, hold on.
Which section?
Well, it's Section 5, amendment of Section 31.041. It's on page 5 in the strikeout version. It's number 3, where it talks about a monthly rate of $100, and then for commercial customers, a monthly rate of $250. And at some point, those may change. So I wasn't sure why they were staying in here when all the others were coming out.
I can tell you why they were put in there originally was because
That's not my question. My question is, why are they staying in the code when we're putting everything else in resolution?
I mean, we can put that in the resolution. I think it was sort of seen as a more stable, static charge that isn't tied to cost of operation so much, but if you would prefer to have that put in the resolution, that's fine.
it doesn't matter to me one way or the
Do
other.
you think they might be increased in?
No, that was used as an incentive, if you will, back in the day to get people to release their meter readings,
Right.
so we could actually bill them for what they actually used.
Right.
I wasn't, of course, on the board at the time, but I can't possibly see it changing. But I don't have a problem putting it in the resolution either.
I mean, at some point, it may be years, but
Right.
at some point, the $100 may not seem like very much to people.
It's fine. I'll amend it, my motion to move it over to resolution.
Well, just move them all.
I want to make sure that, taking out what Randy's suggesting, what happens in the interim until we fix it? Do they not get charged for an extension? What happens in the interim?
An extension greater than 50 feet?
Right.
Well, I can't imagine we would probably have too many before we could bring something back to you. But in the interim, if you guys want to just provide the actual cost, I guess
There is no extension policy.
you don't have anything on paper unless you do adopt it as actual cost, which is probably what it's going to end up being anyway.
Okay. I just don't want it to be forgotten, and then somebody come and want to do it, and there's no policy, and then we...
No, I mean, we've already made a note of it, and if you guys vote tonight, we'll have standing board direction to bring that back.
That's fine.
And we don't have the language that we could include that tonight?
No.
No. Okay. All right, I had another question on Section 6, amending 31042, deposits. On page 7 and 8, there are sections about users on private wells and water meter installations that are coming out of here, but I don't see them somewhere else. So are we no longer doing that?
I'm unclear what your question is, Commissioner Hart. Which section again? Sorry, I'm trying to page down.
Okay.
31.042?
Correct.
Okay, so your
On page
question...
7 and page 8, there are references made to users on private wells, and about, like, the county shall have, about installing a water meter, and the county shall have the right to cut off the water supply. Is that's coming out of
Two
here.
separate questions then. The one in 31.042 says that they're going to pay a deposit when they connect
But it,
to the sewer system.
right, but it also makes a statement about installing a water meter.
That is struck out. That's language we've struck. We're taking out.
Do we not need to require that anymore?
What it previously was, what it said was that you're going to pay a deposit when you install a water meter.
Right.
But what we're saying is, since we control when they connect to sewer, they're going to pay a deposit when they connect to sewer. This is for the sewer system.
But
Right, they're gonna pay the deposit when they connect to sewer, but if we still are gonna wanna install a water meter, correct?
if they're on a well,
On a well?
if they're on a well,
I think I understand Ms. Art.
And if you take that out, that statement, do we no longer have the authority to require
we
the...
measure sewer by how much water people use, not how much sewer they use.
Well, we have billing agreements with the water entities to...
Not if they're on a well.
So if someone connects to a sewer and they're not on city public water,
The old Midcap crab plant used to be like that. They had a private well on their property. The county had a water meter on their well, on Midcap's well, and we'd go out and read the meter, and they got a sewer bill based on how much water pumped out of their well. I think that's what Ms. Arts is saying, and I know that is a specific example. And I don't think there's very many examples like that, but It is possible.
It's
I just
possible.
want to make sure that when we take the language out related to the deposit being linked to installing this meter, that we aren't losing our ability to install a meter if we need to on a
Good
private
point.
well.
The one account that I'm aware of that we read the meter still is Wakulla Springs, where they have their own water supplies, and we base their sewer fee based on the well reading. You know, we have some residential homes that are on private wells, and we're probably going to be coming back to the board at a later date with a way to address this. This is a little bit more complicated than a deposit going on private properties and turning off wells, and because again you're back on private property. But we right now the residential homes that are on private wells, basically we're using an average.
I was going to say, it's my understanding they're just charged a flat fee.
Well, yeah, we're basically using what, you know, a family, a size house. We'd come up with an average on that. But we will be coming back later to the board addressing specifically if somebody disconnects from a public water system and still in the sewer system, how we will address that, and that's a little more complicated issue.
Okay, it looked like we were taking things out that we might need to address at some point, so I look forward to that.
Well, it's the same question that applies, what do we do in the interim if we take this out?
Well, I mean, what
We have
you're,
existing customers that, like you said now,
all you're doing, though, is you're not saying that they don't have to have a meter. All you're doing is saying the deposit is due when you connect to sewer, not when a water meter goes in. And on the second question in the section below that, which is 31.043, I believe, is where your second question was, Commissioner Arts.
Number 9.
That, I know that it's in your code. I'm of the opinion that that's very legally problematic to go onto somebody's property and destroy private property and disconnect them. So even if this was in the code, I have always advised staff not to do it.
If it's being omitted for legal reasons?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Good way to get shot.
And then the septic
sued.
The septic system hauler dump fee and deposit, they're going to have to. When will we get the chance to? I guess it's already put together what the rules are for them. Okay, and my main question is if someone, because I know we talked a little bit about what they're going to have to do. I just want to make sure we've mentioned if they don't do all the obligations that we've asked them to do, to make sure that we can bill them appropriately. That I'd like to see them billed for their entire. What the maximum capacity is. If they have a 500-gallon truck and they don't put it in,
If they don't abide by the rules we got set forth for measurement of loads brought to the plant, they won't be allowed to dump. We're there when they start the dumping process, and if they're not current with the bills, if they haven't complied with having a sight glass to determine the volume of waste in the truck, we won't allow them to dump. We make them leave.
and I'm not familiar enough with the sight glass. Do they normally have sight glasses already on them?
Yes.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure if there's someone who didn't have it on there, that to encourage them to install it would be we bill them for the entire maximum.
We have had this discussion with the majority of the contractors out there, and they're
On board?
They're on board.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. Any further discussion?
one thing, and we talked about it with staff today, David, this thing needs a comprehensive rewrite, and David has put that on his to-do list with Heather, and I mean, it needs a lot of work. Its time has passed, and that if things have changed, it needs to be rewritten more clearly to apply to how we do business now. So I hope that comes in the near future, that we see that come back to us.
Okay. Are there any citizens? Okay. Any further discussion?
One moment, just so I have a motion, and there's been 2 changes to it. One is to remove the $6 per linear foot, and one is to remove the incentive, the $100 and $250 per month charge for customers who don't allow access to their water readings. I don't think that one got technically included in the second.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
And adding
Move
to the resolution.
Move to the resolution.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Any opposed? No. Sorry. Okay. And one opposed. So it passes 4-1. Thank you. Up next is the public hearing to request board approval to conduct the public hearing approval to transmit amendments to policy 1.3.1 and policy 1.3.6 and the addition of policy 1.3.7 and policy 1.3.8 of the infrastructure element of the comprehensive plan pertaining to Wakulla Springs nitrogen reduction standards for advanced wastewater treatment. Louis?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, these amendments are being brought forth to you for transmittal. If they are approved for transmittal, you will get another chance to review these amendments and adopt them. These policies that are being changed in the infrastructure element are being brought forth at the request of the board. As you probably know, the county currently requires the use of performance-based septic systems, including for the replacement of conventional septic tanks with performance-based septic systems when the systems fail or require modification. The policies also currently in place require advanced wastewater treatment for central wastewater treatment facilities. As you may recall, we had intended to bring you these amendments in April. However, due to legislation adopted by the Florida legislature and signed into law, House Bill 1263 affected the county's ability to limit the areas where performance-based septic systems can be required. As explained in more detail in the report, because the county had existing policies in place prior to January of 2012, these policies are grandfathered from the limitations of the state law. However, in response to the legislation, staff relooked at how our approach to these amendments were going to take place, and we are bringing forth the amendments presented in Attachment 2 today.
I'll make a motion to conduct a public hearing and vote to transmit the proposed comp plan amendment, amending policies 1 blah 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 and adding policy 1.37 and 1.48 for the infrastructure element of the comp plan, based upon the recommendation of the planning department and findings of fact and conclusions of law made by the board and any evidence submitted at the hearing hereon.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any citizens? And I'd like to encourage everyone who's by the door, if you'd like to, we have plenty of seats on this side of the room. Feel free to fill in. We have lots of citizen cards. Would you like to hear from the citizens first?
Yeah.
Up first is Ron Pisaki. They look like paper. They are paper.
Yes, Ron Pisaki, 137 Royster Drive. Appreciate the opportunity to speak for the board. We spoke for the Planning Commission last month. I'm here as chairman of the Hydrogeology Consortium, Wakulla Spring Alliance. We've got just a few little charts to go through, and I'll hopefully do it well within the 3 minutes. But just a couple of points beforehand. Your proposal is talking only requiring performance-based septic systems and new construction, and then you're saying under 5 acres, or it has to be at least a minimum of 0.229 acres. If it's below that, you put a performance-based system, and this is outside the protection zone. Been a lot of discussion. There was a planning session about what are the costs of these systems. Got an email, had discussion with Patrick Juarez. He's stating new systems, standard system, $3,000 to $4,000. Performance-based, $6,000 to $8,000. Again, keeping in mind new construction, where when you buy the house, you're amortizing it over 30 years. So that additional $3,000 to $4,000 you may end up paying for a performance-based system at the get-go over 30 years is going to amount to about $100 a year. So it's not like it used to be under repair. If you had to go from a standard system to fix it up where you have to dole out $4,000 to $8,000 immediately, we're talking here $100 a year as part of your mortgage. The other costs that keep being discussed are the cost of maintenance agreements. And I didn't realize, first of all, maybe you guys do, but There are already 300 systems, performance-based systems in Wakulla County. And the statutes do require that those systems have, or any new system, have a maintenance contract. The cost of those are ridiculous. Some of those are $200 to $300 per year to do it. And so we've heard a lot of discussion about the cost. Well, Patrick confirmed me that you or I, or homeowner, can be certified to do the inspections. And all it takes is for one of the 3 contractors to come in and train people on what is required as far as the maintenance agreement, and they can be done. You can have plumbers do it. You don't have to have a septic system installer charging $400 to $500 for 2 years to do it. So there are ways to do it. One thing would be the county negotiate contracts and making those available to all the people. Another would be to pay a small fee every year to the health department. And I didn't realize this either. Everybody has to pay that has a performance system $50 a year to the health department. They go out and inspect. Why not give them $150 a year? 3 months already? Can I have maybe 1 or 2 minutes and I'll... Okay. Let's flip on to it.
I'll quite very quickly.
Okay, let's go to the next chart. You've got copies of this in front of you. This is showing all the areas that's vulnerable within Wakulla County. Next chart. This is showing all the septic systems that we currently have. And if you look at a line where 7,200 people are, it shows 7,200 systems. If you go across, that's about the line where the current protection zone is. And what we're proposing in the last, keep going. This is the relationship. What we're proposing, that's okay, just flip to the last one. We're proposing expanding the protection zone all the way to the coast. This would pick up Reiner, Wakulla Gardens, Magnolia Gardens, and Lake Ellen Estates, and Live Oak Island. And it would protect the coastline, so if you're worried about the fishing industry, water quality, please
Thank you, sir.
make the modification.
I appreciate it. John Clark.
John Clark, 109 Garner Circle. I currently fall within the protection zone, and I recently had a failure of my drain field, which it cost me approximately $5,000 to repair. I was told by the contractor that this performance-based system would be around $12,000. So this $6,000 cost, I don't know if that's accurate or not. And furthermore, I don't want to pay an annual fee. I already pay enough annual fees for this, that, and everything else. So it's about my pocketbook and my freedoms. And I was reading in the proposed changes here about finding ways to help someone out if they don't qualify. Well, who's going to help me out when I don't qualify? And I don't like to finance, and I don't take loans, and I pay cash for stuff. You know what then? When you've made a decision to allow me to just have to pay more out of my pocket when I paid, I don't know, $10, $11, $12,000, $15,000, 15 years ago to have it installed and it failed. Then I had it fixed. And I just want to see it changed, whether it's 5 acres, 2 acres. My recommendation would be just simply for new construction, period. Don't expand the zone, eliminate the zone. Thank you.
Ms. Carol Dell.
Hi, I'm Carol O'Dell, 96 Monocoop Circle. I am a real estate agent as well as a private citizen, and I would like for you all to consider the cost to someone who is going to purchase land in an area that's not inside the protection zone. That may be the decision maker for those people. They may say, well, it's too expensive for me to live in Wakulla County because I can't afford to do that. I want to protect the springs and the places that need to be protected, but I think you have to do it so that you're not overburdening the person who's trying to get into Wakulla County, so you can start collecting taxes on them. I have a petition that was signed by a number of real estate agents. I'd like to pass that on to you. And also, I did not realize that Mr. Piasecki said that he wants to expand the zone to the coast, and that's just mind-boggling to me. I mean, why would you, yes, protect what needs to be protected, but don't overburden the citizens and the people that want to move to Wakulla County. Thank you for your time.
Want to give us that?
Rich Bray?
Hi, good evening. My name is Rich Bray, 1115 Domingo Drive, Tallahassee. I'm a biologist. Back in January, I presented a report, a summary of the latest data and studies, and I appreciate all the commissioners looking at that. I reviewed your current draft language for the ordinance amendments, the strike-throughs and underlines, and I got to tell you, from a scientific perspective, this meets the current studies and data. Septic systems have not caused the problems in Wakulla Springs. The data and the studies indicate that. They clearly indicate that. And you'll probably hear some qualified hydrogeologists probably get up tonight and tell you that, you know, in the year 2018, septic systems will be the major contributor. Well, that's 6 years from now, and I urge commissioners not to penalize the homeowners and property owners for something that may or may not occur 6 years from now. The scientific data and studies do not definitively conclude that septic systems have contributed to the problems in Wakulla Springs. Your draft language in Attachment A meets the current science, and I commend you for whoever drafted this language. I got to tell you a quick, somewhat humorous story. I grew up in the huge metropolis of Carabel, and we had a pond right beside our house that was surrounded by homes and septic systems 75 feet away from the pond. That pond was beautiful, the water clear. We fished in that pond, we swam in there. A few miles down the road was the city water treatment plant that had advanced treatment, tertiary treatment, and it treated the water and then discharged directly into the bay. Nobody swam anywhere near that treatment facility, and nobody fished around it. It smelled bad, even on the best of days. And same can be said of the high-tech treatment facilities in Tallahassee. The Thomas P. Smith facility on Spring Hill Road, I go by it all the time. Even on the best of days, it smells bad. Now, I got to tell you, I trust my nose unquestionably. If it smells bad, I usually stay away from it. So, once again, kudos to you for your draft language. It meets the current science. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith Palmer?
Good evening. My name is Keith Palmer. I'm at 63 River Plantation Road. First of all, I'd like to say thanks for allowing me to just walk up here and speak to you. This is the first time I've attended one of these meetings, and so it's very refreshing to see democracy in action. For the past 30 years, I've been an environmental professional, and for the past 10 years, I have been working for various state agencies and federal agencies, assessing the waters of Florida, and I have assessed and written TMDLs, those are total maximum daily loads, for counties and basins that are very similar to this situation. I will tell you something that every county commissioner has said to me after I have written their total maximum daily load. If we would have only had known ahead of time to keep the nutrients out of the water, we would have been a whole lot better off and would be paying a whole lot less. And basically, that's all I have to say. It's a difficult situation. For an example, in the St. Lucie total maximum daily load basin document, we eliminated all surface water inputs of nutrients, leaving the only input that we had in the entire several county region were on-site treatment facilities. in the end, there had to be at least a 50% reduction in nutrients going into the St. Lucie system. And now the county system, the county government there in three counties is struggling with how they're going to meet those on both federal and state requirements, because they're both requiring them to make those reductions. So, just in closing, thanks for letting me express that to you, and have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bob Janzi?
Hi, my name is Bob Danzig. Thank you for letting me speak also. I don't say it enough, but usually when I come up here, I'm of some sort of advocate of small business, of generating tax dollars and allowing people to buy and sell things that they'd like to buy and sell in Wakulla County. This is one piece of the puzzle that goes into creating a better business atmosphere. If you pass this, I would like to see it with the no protective zone. But I'll take what I can get. If you pass this, this is one of the steps. This is getting rid of regulations and red tape. I have a customer. I still may get to sell her house, but she's going to buy a house. If she does, there'll be probably a foreclosure. But she wanted to come here and build a house last year. Or maybe it was about 18 months ago. And she didn't. She just point blank didn't come and didn't build. Now that was only one house. I just don't know how many of those kind of people that they are. So it wasn't all about septic tanks. There's a lot of things that we need to work on as far as restrictions, red tape, and just make a better business environment here. We'll create a lot of jobs. Thank you.
Mr. Ben Withers?
I'm Ben Withers, and I am a septic tank contractor, which doesn't sound nice in here tonight, but I am one of those guys out here that is making our living putting in septic systems, and I put in these performance-based treatment systems, and I make my living there. But I'm in total agreement with what you guys are doing tonight. When we brought about this ordinance, it was to protect the springs, and that's what we're doing. But we went overboard when we did that, and the changes that you're doing now are consistent with what other counties are doing in the state of Florida, and we just need to we need to drop back and give people an opportunity to build their houses if they want to, and if it's in the protection zone, then we need to protect it. And I strongly disagree with some of the comments from one of the other speakers about extending this down onto the coastline. We already have setbacks and property line dimensions that you have to meet if you're near the coastline, and if you're too close to the coastline, then you've got to put in an ATU or performance treatment type unit in those situations already. So we're already doing those, and I would encourage you to fall in line with what the state health office, what their current guidelines are, which is what you're doing now, and it's great to do more, and you are doing more by what you're doing here tonight. So again, I appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you guys pass this. Thanks.
Cal Jamison.
I'm Cal Jamison, 411 White Oak Drive. For the last 10 years or so, I've been the Wakulla Springs ambassador, and I've walked and driven the county and surveyed over 600 sinkholes. This is a map that was created from my data by Florida Geological Survey, and it's a pretty useful map. It shows you the cave system, it shows you closed basins, it shows you public lands. But when we think of Wakulla County, we often think about it as a map, or maybe an aerial photograph. Show me the next one. This is a map of Wakulla County, and it's a little hard for you to see. All of the red spots on there are sinkholes that part of the 600 sinkholes I've been to. look at the thousands of sinkholes in Wakulla County, thousands that I have not been to. And they extend all the way through from the west side of 319 down to the coast, actually out into the water. But this is what Wakulla County looks like, what it really looks like when you take the trees off it and you take the houses off it. This is what our land looks like. This is a very fragile, highly vulnerable area. And I think it looks like how many sinkholes can you see there? It looks like the craters of the moon, our county does. Next sinkhole, next slide. This is also a LiDAR representation of the county. It has the vulnerability zones portrayed in the darker brown. The next circles are a little bit less vulnerable, but still pretty vulnerable. And the lighter color is less vulnerable. You notice there's no place on there in the county that is not vulnerable. The Wakulla Springs Protection Zone here is outlined in the green dots. The proposed zone that you're talking about now for performance-based septic tanks is here. Look how much highly vulnerable land you're taking out of protection. Right now, all of this is protected. And you're talking about not protecting it? You know, I hear figures say, well, there's only 7% of the influence of septic tanks or whatever it is, but you got to remember that we're also facing a water quantity problem. The Water Management District has already permitted enough wells that if they pump the capacity, they would exceed the daily flow of Wakulla Springs. So that's just if they started pumping. The last slide, I've added the wetlands layer. One more layer of vulnerability in the county.
Thank you, Cal.
So just please take a look at that, see how vulnerable the county is, and you talk about making the vulnerability less. Please don't do that.
Crystal Wakulla.
Crystal Wakulla, 108 Passion Flower Lane, Crawfordville. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. And I really appreciate that you care about the cost of the septic system upgrades to our citizens, because if the protection zone is expanded, I would be in that expanded zone, and the cost is of a concern for me. However, I moved here 28 years ago because of Wakulla County's water. And I believe that a lot of people move here because of recreational opportunities, fishing, boating, swimming, recreating, that are based on the quality of our water that I think is at risk here if you proceed with what's before you tonight. So I just want to take a minute to put this in a little broader context, because I've been working on this issue for a while. I think to weaken the standards would be nothing short of thumbing our nose at the city of Tallahassee. And that may not matter very much to you, but our county was part of a lawsuit that forced the city of Tallahassee to go to AWT on the timetable that they are doing it. And that costs $162 million, and the citizens of Tallahassee are paying for that every month on their utility bills. And that's for the benefit of our watershed, which extends, from Georgia all the way down to Spring Creek, one watershed. Our citizens, our county citizens, paid pretty exorbitant attorney fees for that lawsuit. And we didn't have, just to make it short, it mattered that much to us. It was the right thing to do, and we won. So I ask you, if you proceed tonight, what leverage will we have in the future when we need to negotiate with both the city of Tallahassee about water quality issues and Leon County to address their septic system in the southern part of the county that really needs addressing? If we weaken the standards, I think we really lose. Not only our water quality loses, but we lose our credibility. We lose our honor. That's a lot to lose. I'm a volunteer boat driver giving tour boats at Wakulla Springs, and part of the reason I do that is to educate people about the water and the watershed. And I tell them about the watershed, and I tell them because we know where the water comes from, it's not a mystery anymore. We know where the nitrates come from, and because we know that scientifically, great strides have been made on all fronts to reduce nitrate pollution to Wakulla Springs. And then I tell them about the city of Tallahassee and their commitment and how proud they are.
Thank you, ma'am.
And then I tell them about our commitment.
Thank you, ma'am.
What would you have me tell them? Thank you.
Mr. Chuck Hess.
Chuck Hess, 112 Lake Ellen Circle. You know, I grew up in a small town in Marion County, and we had a nice river just like Wakulla River here, and it had gorgeous grasses all the way 6 miles down it. And Marion County has gone through significantly more development than we have, and they have large elder communities being built all over the county. And the quality of that river has diminished such that the last 3 miles of that river is now simply algae flats. And it's simply algae flats because the nitrogen loads in that river are too high, and it's changing the whole ecology of the river. Now, you have an opportunity here to be ahead of the development that's coming to Wakulla County, ahead and setting in systems that allow us to protect our waters, and you're throwing it away. You know, the developers have driven the laws in Tallahassee such that the rest of the counties in the state, I mean, people in Marion County would love to be able to put in advanced wastewater treatment septic tanks. They just can't do it because of the new law. We can still do it because we have an existing law, and we need to keep that opportunity and keep that system into place. The report you have from your planning commission does not protect, that says it protects most vulnerable areas. It does not protect all the most vulnerable areas. There's lots of vulnerable areas still outside that protection zone that you've developed. Now, I can understand why you wouldn't want to have it out at Smith Creek and Sop Choppy. Those areas they probably don't need this system, but the karst system that runs down 319, that karst ridge, needs to be protected, and it needs to be protected because the water from that ridge is what develops and goes into Wakulla Springs. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck. Those are all the citizens to speak on this issue this evening. Discussion from the board?
I have something. Can I go last? Somebody in front of me? Okay.
I don't know that it'd be last, but to go.
Tim, can you help me put these on the table, please?
Yeah. Do you want, while he's getting the water, Commissioner Stewart, do you want to talk for a moment?
Sure. Just to respond to some of the comments that were made, I'm going to support this measure tonight, and the reason is I was against it back when the last board voted it into place. I thought it was foolish and too far-reaching. I'm for protecting the springs. Understand that, but I have heard. My gosh, I wish I knew how many hours of testimony we've heard and scientific, whatever you want to call it, come up and tell us all about how these things work. But I still can't find science that tells me that a performance-based septic tank is a proven, that it's proven to work like they advertise it to. I don't think it does. I can't find anywhere that it works. As it stands right now, if your septic tank fails, any of us, if we have a regular old septic tank and it fails in any manner, it has to be a line changed, drain field dug up. You can't do it. You have to dig up the whole thing and put in a performance-based septic tank. And the cost is between $10,000 and $15,000. That's the truth. You can use whatever numbers you want. In the end of the day, when Ben Withers or whoever drives off your property, you're going to get a bill for somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000. I don't think homeowners can, and I hope, I'm going to bring this up later under something else about performance-based septic tanks, but I'm not sure that homeowners can certify to inspect, nor would I, what's the reason for having inspections if you got the fox in the hen house looking at it? If I'm inspecting my septic tank, I'm going to be the first to say, yeah, it looks good, go on. We have found over and over with all of them that are working out there, or installed, not working, the power's been turned off to them. As soon as the inspection guy leaves, they go turn the breaker off because they don't want to waste the electricity. And they work less efficient than a normal septic tank does once you turn them off. That's a fact. $300 to $500. You know, I heard Mr. Pasecki talk about how cost-effective it is to have it financed into your home. Well, guess what? All the new amenities that we want to always get factored into that bottom line of what we pay for a house, that's just another factor that just keeps driving that price up where nobody can afford a house. But that's not all. You need to understand, folks, that once you get that performance-based septic tank, then you got to pay somewhere between a $300 and $500 annual fee to have it inspected. And I'm going to talk about that later under my item. $300 to $500. I don't know how many of you, I wouldn't want to have to pay that for something that doesn't work. If science can prove to me that this is doing it, then I'm all for it. Less, now I want to make sure you understand this. The scientific study said less, if I get these numbers wrong, somebody correct me, less than 1% of the deterioration of Wakulla Springs is caused by Wakulla County septic tanks. Less than 1%. 99% and more comes north of here. They should be doing their part. By golly, they're the ones who screwed it up for us. And it's time that they do spend their however many $1 million to fix it. And I don't think they're doing enough yet. We're not causing it, guys. Somebody else is causing it, and we're having to live with it, but we're not generating that. That's what's going into the springs. So until I can see science that tells me otherwise, I think this is foolish. I think what we're trying to do tonight is good. I think that they should have done this they could have easily done something that would have worked the last board meeting, that could have encompassed the bodies of water that needed to be protected. And they didn't. They made it a blanket, county-wide, and it was too far-reaching. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing tonight, and I'll pass it on.
Commissioner Moore, your demonstration, please.
I have a small demonstration. I agree with Mr. Stewart. And talking with the...
you have your mic, people can hear you.
Can you hear me?
It's the two people at TV that picks up the television.
Pick your mic up and you can hear it, Jerry.
I got one arm.
Very good. All right, anyway, I agree with Mr. Stewart on this. Talking with the plumbers, they tell me as soon as they leave the house, the people unplug the system. I have people told me the other day that this particular couple makes $150,000 a year. They had to put in a performance-based septic tank. They unplugged it when the plumber went down the driveway. It wasn't because that they didn't have the money to pay it. They just didn't see the need to pay it. Those systems have a motor in them. That's why they unplug them. That motor will have to be replaced. The inspection fee will have to be done. Mr. Rich Bray, I imagine you're going to lose your membership in the biology club. I got a call that you have just been removed from the biologist club for your support of this. But in financing of properties, many years ago, I thought we really should put in storm windows, storm doors, make everything energy efficient. The builders who tried to do that, their homes sit there. They would not sell. And I would come back, you need to do this because in the long run you save a lot of money. The buyer didn't care about the long run. He only cared about the number of dollars that he was putting out on a monthly basis. That's the relationship that he had. I got the number that Wakulla County puts 0.76 of 1% of nitrogen into the springs. If somebody can tell me that 0.76 of 1% will cause an algae bloom, have at it. I don't think that's probably true. The 0.76 was determined by people who were looking for the product. That bothers me a little bit too. If we had had a balanced review, maybe it wouldn't have been .76, maybe it would have been .25. But what I have here is I have 100 parts of water that are coming into the springs. What I have here, this is 100 parts of nitrogen. What I have here in a half a glass is 0.76 of 1%. This is the amount of nitrogen that we put into all of this. So, first of all, I think I don't agree with the 5 acres. I can hold my nose and swallow 2 acres and above. 5 acres is beyond me. So if it be 5 acres, it'd be 5 acres. But I'd like to see us take it back to 2 acres and above if we have to do something. But I don't want to thinking about, this thing was put on the entire county. Think about people that are not in that district for whatever reason. They were going to have to do it. Now we want to go down to Oyster Bay and put the entire section below the springs on. I have no question that the water doesn't flow into Wakulla Springs. What I have a question about is 0.76 nitrogen causing an awful algae bloom in the springs. I just don't think that's true, and I may be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, but put 0.76 in all this water, and I'll be glad to drink it. You never know it's there. But so
Knock that glass on, Jerry.
if it's nitrogen, that much is not going to hurt you.
That computer don't like.
That's just one man's opinion. But we shouldn't put this performance based on the people who can least afford it. If there's people out there who has a regular tank and they believe so strongly in this, call Mr. Ben. He'll change it out and put you in a performance-based tank. Really, if you believe that, go with your conviction. Change out. And I'm sure there's some of them sitting here that have a performance-based, have a regular tank. And they're saying everybody else should put a new tank in. That's just bull.
Mr. Chairman, I want to add one thing to clarify something I said, because we've heard that we're talking about this less than 1% of what we cause. Those numbers will change, and we'll be providing 100% of it when Tallahassee's goes away. So don't get confused, folks. That 0.76% don't change. It just changes the ratio of it. Okay? And it's all relative. So it's still going to be whatever Jerry was at, 0.76% of 1%. And it's going to be called 100%. It's still not causing the damage, guys. It's not causing the damage.
Commissioner Merritt and then Commissioner.
As y'all know, I'm the one that brought this up to get it changed. It looks like I got the vote, so I'm not going to waste anybody's time. But Jerry, I want to stick with the 5 acres as written, so it can move forward today and not have to come back. So I'm not going to waste talking.
And I think that's a fair compromise. I do. I agree with you, Jerry, but I think this is a fair compromise. And I really like your point about if people want a performance-based septic tank, go get one. You're going to be sorry, but go get one.
Commissioner Arts.
Yeah, this is for me a really difficult change. In our county, we live on Swiss cheese. We are not a typical county where there's clay and whatever. One of our speakers said this is extremely vulnerable, sensitive land. And we have people who are working hard to develop our ecotourism so that we can have a vibrant economy based on our natural resources. And we've got to protect them. What I hear most people saying is that they're taking a very short-term view and they're concerned about how much money's coming out of their wallet or whether they're going to be able to sell a house. And those money is important. And but somebody has to be looking at the long-range view and putting some price tag, some value on the resources that we have. And one gentleman talked about once you get very polluted and degraded, which we are already well on our way, then it's very expensive to try to restore that, and all our ecotourist businesses are going to suffer. I've kind of come on board with y'all about not requiring the upgrades, because there are a limited number of right now that need to be upgraded. But I buy requiring it for new construction because the costs are spread out over time, and because our county's never going to be able to afford to run sewer all over the county, nor should we want to. Right now we have 10, 12,000 septic tanks. In 10 years, maybe we'll have 24,000. And after, they're just going to keep increasing. And each one of them puts a little pollution into the water. And our water is all interrelated. And so it's not accurate to say that when the percentage changes because less comes from further north, that we're not increasing. The more septic tanks we put in, we are increasing. We will become a bigger and bigger part of the problem, not just at Wakulla Springs, but along all our rivers, our coast. And the shame of this is because of the new law. If we take this out because this board has their opinion today, that in 2 years from now or a year from now we have a new board, 3 years from now when we have a new board, we've tied their hands. They aren't going to be able to do anything. And boards certainly change. So we're losing, this grandfathering issue is very important. I guess even though I'm willing to go along with not requiring it for the upgrades, I am concerned about not expanding the protection zone. First of all, as Cal pointed out, we aren't even including all of the current protection zone. I wasn't really aware of that. But there's, our protection zone keeps moving south. And I think there's going to be, with time, more and more contribution coming to Wakulla Springs from the south. So it's just short-sighted. It's not in the best long-term interest of this county, of our economic future. And it's sad to see us going backwards this extremely. I don't think we need to go this extremely. And I've said this several times, if money's the issue, there are ways to address the money issues, but this board hasn't even really been willing to talk about or pursue any of those choices. We just want to increase the pollution. And there are plenty of studies that show these work. And yes, some people unplug them, but we also got an estimate on how many people were in that category. The majority still leave them on, and they reduce. 50% is absolutely, we're cutting our reduction of nitrogen in half. And I guarantee you, if I had something I could offer you that would cut your risk of a heart attack or cancer in half, everybody would be wanting to buy it, no matter how much it costs. And in essence, that's what we're talking about. We're trying to, each time, if we can reduce each septic tank in half, we are cutting the risk to our county's health of this nitrogen pollution. So I'm not going to support it.
I've heard some talk about money. I told you guys, but I want to reiterate my motivation. I bet I've done 80% of the engineering on these septic performance tanks in this county because I'm an engineer. I've made a lot of money doing it. I'm going to lose that money now, this income, if we do this rule change. I personally. So I'm doing it because I think it's the right thing to do. I get a loss. I don't get a gain out of it. That's just want to make sure nobody thinks that he's a contractor, blah, 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 and I don't build spec houses, and I'm going to lose money, but I think it's the right thing to do.
Mr. Moore?
I'll try to be more brief this time. Ms. Arts mentioned thousands of septic tanks. In the Wakulla Springs North, Tallahassee has 8,000 to my understanding. Wakulla has 1,000. Somebody brought up the idea the other day that there was only the potential for 2,000 more septic tanks north of Wakulla Springs. If you interpolate the 0.76 and you put those 2,000 more in, you come up with a total nitrogen of 2.28% maximum. In worst case scenario, if we developed out the 2,000 more tanks, would 2.28% cause a problem?
Jerry, that's with the existing protection zone. You've just heard people show you, I mean, there's pollution coming to Wakulla Springs from the south.
Ms. Arts, we have sewer right now at 98 and Spring Creek Highway within 300 yards.
I dare say y'all are going to change each other's minds. Let's let Alan talk.
Yeah, I've got a couple of quick comments, and this is the first of two hearings, right?
Yeah, final before it goes to DCA or to DOE.
This is your transmittal hearing, and it will come back for final adoption once you get comments from the state.
Again, I go back and forth on this. I like a lot of what is being done with this proposed changes that Randy's doing. I really do. I think it's doing a lot of really good things. I'm optimistic, and I've talked about this in the past that as some of this money comes back from the BP oil, Deepwater Horizon spill stuff, we're going to be able to use some of that money to help improve the sewer along our coastal areas. And so it's far off. None of this is all up in the air, hopeful thinking right now, but use that to help improve our sewer and expand our sewer along our coastal areas, which to me is better than septic tanks, because we're taking it out of there altogether. I don't want, and one of the things that makes me nervous, and it becomes frustrating, it's a burden to put on somebody to buy a $12,000, a $6,000 septic tank, $7,000 septic tank, and then 3 years later, well, hopefully we'll see. I don't know who's unplugging these things. If you're watching this, that's just being ridiculous. They work worse than a regular septic tank at that point. You're basically just that's not good for you or your family. I've reached out to the city of Tallahassee, several leaders on this issue, and talked to them about it at length. And they think what we're doing is a good idea. They think as long as we're protecting North Wakulla Springs, that's good. But we've gotten letters from other people. I have the 1,000 Friends of Florida letter up in front of me right now, and the only part I'm really uncomfortable with is I also worry about Spring Creek, which is another major creek base, another spring south of Wakulla Springs, and if we only protect north of Wakulla Springs, we're leaving Spring Creek out there. And that's the part that gives me great pause. And I go back and forth on this in myself, trying to figure out, because the way the law's been changed, what we have done, the state passed a law that we're grandfathered in with, but right now, everything is protected in Wakulla County. They've made it so that if we make this change, we're not going to be able to expand it out again. So if we find out we're wrong, we're not going to be able to say, let's make that we've done something bad. They've made the law. I mean, the state could change the law again. I actually wouldn't be surprised if the state changes the law again, because this law is a bit restrictive. But right now, they've made it so that no new laws can be passed regarding performance advanced wastewater treatment septic tanks. You can't make these rules stricter. So what we're doing is making our rule less strict. But we're not going to be able to come back and say, you know what, we made a mistake. Let's undo that. And it makes me nervous. It makes me nervous. And that's the part that I've been struggling with this whole time. And I go back and forth because I think everything else in this is excellent.
Alan, excuse me just a second. US 98 and Spring Creek Highway has sewer going down. I gave a pumping station, Cleve is going to name it after me.
He is.
Isn't that right, Cleve?
There will be a plaque.
We'll have a party there one day when they name that. But that is bringing sewer up from Spring Creek and Shell Point up Spring Creek Highway. So it's going to pick up and accommodate most of what you're talking about.
A lot of it. But you have areas, and the big area we're talking about is Wakulla Gardens, which is right there. in the Spring Creek water basin.
We're very close to that with sewer now. We don't have any money, but we're very close.
And that's a part that weighs heavy on me, because I'm hoping that we can find a way to sewer Wakulla Gardens someday, and I don't want whatever cost that ends up being for the people, being on top of them, having done a new septic tank. This does a lot of good. This reduces the density in Wakulla Gardens, because you'll have to still get an advanced wastewater treatment if you're on one lot in Wakulla Gardens. This requires you get at least two lots.
Magnolia Gardens.
Or Magnolia Gardens, or Grinders. Any place with an 800 acre lots, you have to get two to be able to not have to have an advanced wastewater treatment. You can still get one. Jerry's right. Anyone can get one of these advanced wastewater treatment septic tanks.
One comment about sewer is that a lot of our coastal areas that have sewer available, people aren't hooked up to it.
Right.
And now we're sending it to a wastewater treatment plant where we're going to stay at secondary treatment. And I'm still not convinced, where is that water going, and what impact is that going to have over time as if we don't go to advanced wastewater treatment and we really increase the capacity of our sewer system.
These areas you're talking about, Miss Arts, Live Oak and Shell Point, Talcott Sewer, well, that's something we need to look on. Then doesn't it say that if your septic tank fails and there's sewer available, you have to hook onto it, even if it's Talcott Sewer? Yes. Anyway, I understand what you're saying, though.
Yeah, so those are my points, and it's a frustrating thing, and I'm just frustrated with the process, because I think everything else we're doing is really good, and I commend you, because what also is happening right now, we talk about things, is you have people doing, I've heard reports of people who know people, it's always one of those I've got a friend who has kind of things, but when their septic tank fails, they're going out there at night fixing it because they don't want to have to upgrade, and who knows how that's working. It's unsafe and it's unhealthy, and it's just being done. So I think making it where people can afford to make these repairs is also a huge step in the right direction. You agree, and the Thousand Friends of Florida agrees. And all the environmentalists agree with what we're doing, except they think it should be further south and help protect the Spring Creek Basin.
We're going to have it south.
And we're going to have sewer to the south. And that's the part, and those are the two sides that I argue with over that. But yeah, we're done.
Let's vote and see what happens.
Let's see what happens. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
It passes.
Come on, Alan.
What's your vote, Alan?
Nothing to lose, Alan. Nothing to lose.
You have to vote.
No, I'm voting. I'm voting. I've done this to you before. I'm voting. I think I'm going to vote against it. But I think it still passes.
That's all I care
That's
about.
all that matters. All right. Thank y'all. All right. Next on the agenda, moving forward, item number 3, requesting board approval to conduct public hearing and consider a text amendment to section 5-11 of the Land Development Code pertaining to the threshold for administrative approval of site plans.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this request is done as a process, as a means of eliminating unnecessary barriers to development. It would allow more site plans to be approved administratively by the director, as opposed to coming to the board.
I'll make a motion to approve, conduct the final public hearing, and vote to adopt the proposed ordinance amending section 511 of the Land Development Code pertaining to the threshold for administrative approval of site plans based on the recommendation of the Plan Commission. Find in fact conclusions of law made by the board and evidence presented hereon, and accepting the staff report. Can we make those a little shorter?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, second. Any citizens to be heard? We have citizens to be heard. Could Chuck Hess come up? Will be followed by Bob Danzy.
15 minutes to talk.
Chuck Hess, 112 Lake Ellen Circle. I understand the motivation to speed things up and make development more quicker and faster. My problem is the size limit. Basically, you'd have to have, I could see going, because it is pretty small, right, what you have right now, but the size limit you have in this is something like AutoZone doesn't even with this parking lot wouldn't be reviewed. It's almost nothing would come before you. I don't think there's a business in the community that would come before you except for Walmart or maybe the the Winn-Dixie. Those are the only signs that you would ever see, and you might want to be a little more involved in smaller developments, more strip malls, more concerned about those than this will allow you to, you will have the opportunity to comment on. These will go strictly straight through, and by the time you see them, they'll be really far along on the process. And so I would suggest you reduce the size a little bit, make it 10,000 square feet total, or 10,000 feet total might be a more reasonable number. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Dancy?
Hi, my name is Bob Danzy. Thank you for letting me speak again. And I think I would just like to say this goes a little bit on the back of the last time I was up here, is doing things for business, just making it a better environment for a person to come here and to do business. I think that you're still going to get a say-so. But, one of the problems that I've noticed in prior boards is that we had guidelines, and when a person goes by them, they get voted down for all sorts of issues, but not because there was something wrong, not because a person didn't go by their guidelines. So in this case, if a person goes by the guidelines, then let it flow, and then there's no personal agendas, I guess you'd say, in it. And then it comes to you can approve it. It'll be based on the rules that the county has. So this is just another part of getting rid of our, I guess you'd say, our red tape. So thank you for voting for this.
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on what both speakers just said, is that our job, in my mind, is to make regulations for them to follow. And if we have a concern about something, we need to change the code and not make individual decisions on each individual site plan. That's not fair to the people applying, and it makes our job real hard.
Well said. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I agree with trying to speed up the process, and but my main concern is the timing of this, because there's been agreement by multiple boards that our land development codes are really out of date. They're circa 1985, and especially within the Crawfordville Town Plan area. We need to get those in place soon, and I think that needs to happen before we make it faster for people to adopt the guidelines that we all acknowledge are outdated and not well suited to our town plan. So I personally would like to see us get the town plan codes in place first, and then it makes sense to do this. So, even though I supported it the first time, I'm not going to support it now just because the timing's wrong.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I just want to say that the planning team we have now in place, and Lynn, you pushed to get a new planner more than any of us did, and we got along with you and did that. Louis and his team are second to none right now. I'm impressed with them. They do their research. They answer the questions. I trust them, and I don't think this is an issue, because I know that they'll do the right thing, and so I don't question that at all. I think, and I agree that we need to take some of the red tape out, and this is what the kind of things we got to do to alleviate all the red tape that people have to go through to develop and to build things that we need in this county. So that's why I'm supporting it.
And I agree with everything you said about Louis, but he has to follow the existing guidelines.
I understand.
And that's where the problem is, not Louis.
And I understand that. And we got a mountain of stuff over there that needs to be changed, and we're pecking away at it with the staff that we have, and I think they're doing a good job of doing that.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1. Next on our agenda is request board approval to conduct the public hearing and adopt text amendments to the comprehensive plan policy 13.1 of the conservation element pertaining to restoration activities within karst features. Louis?
I'll go ahead and make the motion on that one too. And read the whole thing, Heather. Kind of wore out. Approve to conduct the public hearing.
I'll move it then.
Okay.
Move to approve to conduct the public hearing and vote to transmit the proposed comprehensive plan amendment, amending the conservation element policy 13.1 of the comprehensive plan, based upon the recommendation of the Planning Commission and the findings of fact and conclusions of law made by the board and the evidence submitted at the hearing hereon.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can Mr. Ben Withers come up? Be followed by Bob Dancy.
I was going to listen to hear what it's about first.
Okay, Bob?
Bob Daisy, I won't take time, I just support it, and it's probably going to be okay.
Okay. Any further discussion from the board?
Well, and I'm sympathetic. I would like to, I think when we cut off the presentation, then the public doesn't know what this is about. And basically all it is allowing restoration of sinkholes to be done. Currently, all development activity around karst features, such as sinkholes, is prohibited. And even if you're trying to restore a sinkhole, that activity that might involve moving earth was considered a development activity, so it was prohibited. This change will allow us to do restoration work using best management practices and so forth.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
It passed unanimously. Up next are awards and presentations. We're going to have citizens to be heard. We'll follow awards and presentations this evening. If you are interested in if you have something you'd like to say as citizens to be heard, please make sure you fill out a card in advance, and you'll have the opportunity to speak on any issue. Our first announcement this evening will be by Scott Joyner.
Okay, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to talk about the summer program that's getting started this Thursday at the library. This program, like it is every year, is 100% fully funded by the Friends of the Library. No county tax dollars or state aid money at all is going into this. So we encourage anybody who wants to support the library, wants to support what the Friends are doing, to please come by this Thursday as we do our first sign-up day. There'll be a table there with a representative from the Friends of the Library to give you all the information about it. And the Friends, incidentally, a couple weeks ago, were named the Nonprofit of the Year in Wakulla County by the Chamber of Commerce, so we're very excited about that. This summer, we're having reading programs from infant all the way up through 8th grade. We're having our usual field trips. We're having performers, dance groups, magicians, storytellers. We're doing field trips to the Junior Museum, the Wakulla Springs, Gulf Specimen Marine Lab. We're even taking a boat tour with a green guide of the Sopchoppy River as a new thing this year. So we encourage, and this is all, like I said, 100% free. We're doing our registration fun days Thursday from 6 to 8, and Friday from 10 to noon, and from 2 to 4 there'll be a bouncy house down there for the kids to play in. So we encourage everybody to come out. And one additional thing that I'd like to bring up, Pat Gilliland, the Central Minister of Wilderness Coast Public Library, who is the library co-op that we're a part of. With her assistance, we are in the closing stages of getting a contract to provide e-book service checkouts to the citizens of Wakulla County. Not a day goes by literally that I'm not asked about that, and I keep saying it's coming. Well, that we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully within the next 6 to 8 weeks we'll be able to start providing that. And I'd like to thank Pat for all her help along those lines. Okay. If there's any questions?
Yes, when you say e-book checkout?
You can check out books to your Kindle, your Nook.
Yeah.
We're going to start it out with just being the best sellers, and we're going to see how many people want to do it. We're just going to start expanding it from there.
I know that you probably had some feeling about my support of the library because I voted against you hiring somebody and whatever, but I'll support you every inch of the way when you're going from the books to the Kindle. Whatever you need in that, I will support that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
That's where it's going to be. That's where it's going to be, and you know that.
Well, we're going to get started going small, and we're going to see how many people want to do it. And the e-books actually are more expensive than the regular books, so we are going to start building on it.
Because one of the things that happens with an e-book, unlike a regular book, you buy the book and it can be checked out over and over again. You buy an e-book and it can be read how many times?
A lot of the publishers, they restrict it to 20 to 24 times. Then we no longer have access, and we have to buy it again.
But there are books that are not the bestsellers down the line that are
books that are in the public domain, classics, things of that sort, but your new bestsellers aren't going to be free like that.
Well, they can wait a day.
You don't have to cut down any trees for an e-book either, Jerry.
They can wait a day. I mean, everything...
I just think it's important people understand how the process works, and this is all being done by Friends of the Library. If you're a supporter of your local Wakulla County Public Library, please make sure to give a donation.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I just want to thank you, the library, and the Friends for planning another wonderful summer for our children in the county.
We love doing it. We have a blast every summer. So please come out, attend any of the programs. Everything's 100% free. The adults have just as good of a time as the kids do.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Arndt, you have an announcement?
Yes, I would like to invite everyone to come to the library tomorrow night from 6 to 8 p.m. There's going to be, in addition to free refreshments, a really interesting presentation and time to socialize, ask questions, offer suggestions related to smart growth and some of the barriers to that in our county. We are going to have Christopher Dirksen, who's the managing director. He's an attorney, and he's the managing director of Clarion Associates, a land use consulting firm with offices in Colorado, Florida, North Carolina, and affiliated offices in Chicago, Cincinnati, and Philadelphia. He will be giving the presentation and has represented numerous local, regional, and state governments in a variety of land use and zoning matters. He specializes in sustainable development plan and code revisions and smart growth implementation. He has an interesting PowerPoint, and if you live, he's going to be focused on Crawfordville Town Plan and the Big Bend Scenic Byway. So if you live in Crawfordville, if you have a business in Crawfordville, please come tomorrow night 6 to 8. If you live anywhere along the Scenic Byway or have a business along the Scenic Byway, please come 6 to 8. If you miss that, the board, my colleagues up here, I'm just going to remind you, on Wednesday, we have a workshop here from 12 to 1:30. If you missed the open house Tuesday night, you can come here on Wednesday from 12 to 1:30, and he'll do a similar presentation. It is here. Pretty much the same, similar.
I'm not going to be here. Unfortunately, I'd love to be, but I'm going to be in Atlanta.
I'm almost afraid to say this, but I've got a meeting with DOT that day, so I have to
At
go.
1:30. Well, you and David are going to have to leave early, I know, but...
What time does it start?
12.
Yeah. It's on, I was thinking it was in Chipley, but it's actually in Midway, so... Yeah, I'll be here for part of it.
Okay, well, we're counting on 4 of us to be here. I knew you couldn't make it. We'll also have a number of planning commissioners and alternates at the noon workshop. And then all day long on Wednesday, we're going to have a team of about 15 community leaders. We're going to make them work hard to look at what we have in place now, what barriers we need to get rid of, what incentives and other things can we put in place. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Arntz. Up next this evening is going to be John Schuff doing a presentation regarding Wakulla 2020 and the advisory committee projects.
Good evening. I'm John Schuff, 87 Tupelo Drive, and I'm here to represent your prioritization committee. Chuck Robinson here is going to help me out. Give me a minute, get ready. You ready? Okay. All right, thank you for the opportunity to present to you what your committee considers to be not only a transportation plan, but also a public safety plan, accessibility plan, and last but not least, an economic development plan. To begin with, we would like to commend this board for its establishment and expansion of this committee back in March. I must say that after having served on numerous citizens committees over the years, I've never worked with such a group of community leaders that assimilated their challenges so quickly or prosecuted the task at hand as completely as this group. Alan Wise helped the committee as a facilitator, providing us with individual project budgets and his just general all-around expertise. And again, Chuck Robinson over here was invaluable in helping to set up this presentation, if I don't mess it up too bad. Plus, he attended nearly every one of the meetings that we had, serving as the Chamber's Government and Commerce Chair. We'd like to thank them both. Prior to your action to initiate to this initiative, started as an ad hoc. Prior to your action, this initiative started as an ad hoc group of Chamber of Commerce members that began meeting about a year and a half ago because we were frustrated by DOT delaying yet again, and this time for 20 years, the necessary widening of the spine of our county, Highway 319. The Chamber Committee came before you several times, keeping you apprised of our deliberations and seeking your input, all of which culminated in your 5-0 vote, which put this initiative on the ballot and the formation of this committee. What we're about to present to you for your consideration is a result of hundreds of hours of work, not just on the selection of these projects, but also with the means and methods that we have previously presented to you to make it all work. These concepts are development of a revenue stream with a bonding strategy, commitment to patients to match our tax dollars with grant funds, commitment to a long-term plan, establishment of an apolitical authority to carry the plan out, and lastly, understanding that we are in a new day and time with regard to local financial participation in large public works projects, whether they be state or federal. As we begin to go through the projects, you will notice a heavy concentration on bike ped facilities. With your commitment to the town plan for a more walkable, safer, and more accessible community, and the fortuitous completion of the countywide bike ped plan, your committee regarded these needs very highly, as their inclusion will also stimulate our economic development and increase our public safety. Please note in this first slide the total amount of projected revenue that we have allocated to each of our communities. As stated, we've used planning numbers provided by Preble Rish. If the county gets involved in the construction of many of these projects, as they do on roads, and we don't run into any problems, there could very definitely be some revenue left over for other projects. One item that I wanted to mention that really didn't get discussed much by the committee is Wakulla Gardens. Given the current issues, it is a community that should receive some benefit as they will contribute to the revenue stream above and beyond what's being discussed now and being sent out to them. Your committee did not consider this area because of all the discussions going on, but could consider helping with the solution at a subsequent meeting. So with that, I'd like to begin reviewing some local slides of what we envision for the county. First slide up is Highway 319. If you start up at the top of the slide is the Bloxham intersection. What we envision for each of these intersections we have listed here is basically a DOT detail for a 4-lane intersection which ends up with 7 lanes and sidewalks. There's just enough right-of-way all the way down the corridor except for Martin Luther King. And we've included a fund in there for right-of-way acquisition down there. But coming down Bloxham Cutoff, the next one down is East Ivan Road. The one after that is that we have marked on here is Ivan Church Road and Mike Stewart Drive. That particular intersection is not in your Crawfordville town plan, but we felt like just thinking about all the other intersections and all the other stuff going on, that would just create a bottleneck if we didn't include that one here also. And if you'll notice right above Ivan Church and Mike Stewart, the proximity to East Ivan, by the time you build those two intersections out, there's a very small portion in the middle that maybe during our discussions with DOT, that's one of those dots that can be filled in. Moving on down south, below Mike Stewart and east, Ivan Church Road, Wakulla Aaron Road. The next intersection down from there is Mary Street. This is also another intersection that we included that's not in the town plan. As we began thinking about the entrance of Highway 61, the way it turns in right there so close to Martin Luther King Road, by the time you did Martin Luther King correctly, you'd have Highway 61 turning right into turn lanes, and that's obviously wouldn't work, so we did a little checking around on that and actually talked with some citizens in the county and verified that DOT has already bought some right-of-way on Mary Street, which is right across from Wakulla Bank. So we've included that intersection in our plan and in our budget. And then, of course, Martin Luther King down there at the bottom. So, all right, so the next slide is the, if you will, the bike ped plan for again, still Crawfordville. And I believe we're going to try Chuck pointing the roads. I'm going to start out up at Michael Drive.
Can I ask a question real quick, if I could interrupt,
Sure.
please?
Sure.
I read the state statute related to this half-cent sales tax, and it seemed very clear to me that you cannot use them to pay for sidewalks or bike paths. I know Heather is reviewing them right now, but I read it, and it seemed crystal clear to me.
Well,
Did y'all check on that?
Well, Heather just walked up to me at the beginning of this meeting and said that to me. I do, vaguely recall having meetings in the county offices with the county staff, and we discussed bike ped facilities. I talked with Alan Wise about it, and now we're going to check into it. But I mean, it was kind of a curveball to me too, because we've been under the impression. In fact, Len Hart's last time she voted, when we discussed it, we were putting bike ped into it then, and we were all here then.
And just to follow up on that, I know I asked questions early on about bike lanes, bike trails, sidewalks, and I was initially, I thought, given information that it could be done in conjunction with road work. Now, maybe that's wrong, but...
No, I don't have I think that's...
These are not in conjunction.
Right.
That's the difference.
Right. Okay, so that...
But Ray went, those aren't bike lanes, but they got added as part of the,
Right. So, anyway, that...
Well, like I said, that was a curveball. Alan seems to have a different read on that, but, where that falls down, I don't know.
Well, we just got the project list, so we're going to go through and vet it, and there may be some additional information, and we'll take a look at project by project.
Okay. Anyway, we planned on including Michael Drive, Oak Street, which come down there on the west side of 98. That's Cedar Avenue there, O'Clockey Street, and High Drive, which comes over and to the road in between the courthouse and the old jail.
Is there enough right away there, John, to do that?
I believe so, Mike. I mean, we've worked fast, and I hope that we have a right of way there. There may be some problems here and there, but
It'll be a good project.
yeah. Then on the other side of 319, starting with Mark, well, you want to go to the top? Okay. Wakulla Aaron Road, all the way across there. I've ridden back from the Senior Citizens Center and seen senior citizens riding down the road on their hover rounds. Then as you, next road down, Taft Drive, the one below that, Allen Harvey and Holly. And then the last one down is a portion of Highway 61, Feely Way, and Martin Luther King. And in the red road that you see over there on the side, that is, as we all know, as Trice Lane. We put that into a priority 2 project. The reason being, there's almost no right-of-way there, and it's going to be very expensive to try to do that project, but it does tie all the sidewalk network in the Crawfordville area together very well. So like I said, we put it into a priority 2 position. Next slide is MedArt. If you look over there where the library is, where Castle Drive heads down towards the rec park, we put a left-hand turn lane in there. That's a fairly dangerous intersection. It'll help the library. It'll also help the north entrance down to the rec park. And down on 98, we put turn lanes on both sides of Evelinda Road there for leading into the rec park. And we put in a bike ped facility going from the high school all the way back over to the middle school for various athletic endeavors. I think that's everything on that slide. Next slide was Panacea. There's one thing that's not shown on that slide that we discovered earlier today. Down towards, down past down where that little red marker is down there, there's Tower Road. We included Tower Road as an evacuation route. Evidently, Highway 98 is a few feet lower than Tower Road, and in bad storms, Tower Road can stay open when 98 goes underwater. This was a request of the Panacea folks. And also there's 3 red dots there. We added turn lanes there, Jubilee Road, one at Walker Street, and the southern one there is at Rock Landing. And you'll notice a sidewalk going down 98 just north of Jubilee and Rock Landing Road, and then one over by Clark Street, and all of Rock Landing Road. And you notice the one going to the west up there, Otter Lake. And also in the little inset up there, that is a road paving project. It's only 150 yards or so long, and it leads back to the volunteer fire department there. All right, for St. Mark's, we planned on a resurfacing of Fire Escape Road and also a resurfacing of Mock Road. And then in the blue there, you've got Shell Island, Port Leon Road sidewalk coming across, stopping at City Park Road. And then over there to the west, you've got Howard Street, a walkway over there by Howard Street. Then on the Spring Creek slide there, or Shell Point slide, whichever you want to call it, all of the Shell Point Road has been recently resurfaced. The representative for that area felt it would be important to have a 4-foot shoulder put on each side of the road, and also on the Spring Creek Road. I understand the Spring Creek Road is up for repaving here in a couple of years, and the road down to Live Oak Island has recently been done. But anyway, those 2 roads for that area. Then we had a project for the Smith Creek area. We had a representative from Smith Creek. There were complaints about a lot of shoulders on in the turns of the 375. It's a fairly narrow road, and lots of trucks, school buses, cars, whatever, running off the road. And so this was a project there. I think you have a list of projects there. It's about a $600,000 project to intermittently widen the shoulders along there and to provide new striping. The next slide is Sopchoppy. In Sopchoppy, we felt like that McKenzie Place Road, which is very close to the city but in the county, would give better access to the city park, and also a small section of Park Avenue. And then if you just go straight above that to the sidewalk portion, a portion of Park, Gulf Street and all of Yellow Jacket and a portion of Municipal Drive. You'll notice a green line across there. We included the Ocklawahamie Bay Bike Trail stops at 319. It does not go into Sopchoppy. People in Sopchoppy were concerned about being more of a point of destination, and we included a bike ped trail into Sopchoppy down the edge of 319. The next next slide here is for the Wakulla Station area. We planned some funds for paving Old Woodville Highway, the section in Wakulla County, and as a priority 1 project. And we also planned on a bike path over to the entrance to Wakulla Springs Park, coming off of the St. Mark's Trail. As priority 2, we thought that it would be good for ecotourism to bring that bike ped trail all the way around the park and back up across, completing the loop. And the last slide there was a interest on the committee to provide some type of jobs transportation to Tallahassee, to pick up at a central location here in the county, and to, and it's fairly nebulous, but to drive the bus to a bus station or a bus stop in Tallahassee and let people catch Caltran from there. This is for a capital outlay. It's not for operations, and there was some discussion at our committee meetings about grants for grants being available for operations. So this was something that our committee wanted to include. All right. Most of this is predicated on the fact that Wakulla County is destined to be a retirement bedroom/bedroom community with our future economic growth spurred on by ecotourism. What you've just seen, we feel, will facilitate our future growth and begin laying the foundation for implementing the town plan you've committed to. Your committee is excited about the possibility this initiative holds for our seniors, students, tourists, pedestrians, bikers, and also citizens who must rely on 319 for their daily activities. We encourage you to move this initiative forward by your acceptance or acceptance with modifications. As you may be aware, our actions have been noted fairly favorably by DOT, and as was just noted, Dave, Randy, and myself are going to be meeting with DOT day after tomorrow at 1:30 to discuss their participation in our county's initiative. And as stated in the excellent cover letter by Andrea Carter in your project package up there, we stand ready to assist in bringing the plan forward for consideration by the public. We're also ready to assist the staff in developing the ballot language, and we'll follow that task up by returning to our respective communities to explain the benefits to our fellow citizens.
I have a couple of questions, if I could.
Please.
Thank you for your work, John.
That's it.
And thank you to the whole committee. Let's assume this meeting that you and I are going to on the 6th, let's assume this goes through. Who's going to represent Wakulla County on this 2020 committee and has the authority to sit down with DOT? Because the board we won't have any money, especially if the 1 cent sales tax fails. We won't have, in my opinion, we won't have any say in the money, what it gets spent on. Somebody from the 2020 committee will have to go meet with DOT, and isn't that correct?
Well, we've left this setting up this authority, this apolitical authority, very nebulous, and I think you actually hit on it. We can't do what's done in Tallahassee. Nobody's even thinking like that. But there's been some discussion about giving Dave a little bit more leeway to go out and purchase right away and do projects as needed to meet, if this were to pass.
That was my main concern, I guess.
But how to set that up, I really haven't delved into that heavily. I mean, I'd like to see if we get there first, and then set something up that's affordable and something that works with the county staff. A lot of these projects are priced out with, it bid work, where the county might do this work, and I think, even on sidewalks and things like that, they're bid out like that in our pricing, so.
And I assume you're going to check on that sidewalks thing, because it was pretty clear to me.
Well, yeah, I thought it was fairly clear that we could do, plan just the way we planned. I really, that's pretty frustrating.
Are there any admin costs? Because I know that the Blueprint 2000 has an executive director who interfaces with the local governments, and do you anticipate there being any admin costs in this, any staff of any sort?
To me, that's all sitting down with Heather and working out the least we can work out and still be functional and accountable.
But this is an autonomous organization. I mean, that's what's being suggested, obviously, is apolitical means not us.
Well, and that's what we had talked about before. Right. So each project doesn't have to come up, and if you've approved all this money to push the project forward, and if it's going to stretch out over 10 or 15 years to spend, every time you change board every 2 years, you get a different orientation, and that's just that was one of the things that was one of the things that made the plan that we modeled ourselves after work so well, was that they let that leash go. But, although they still review every year. But
this 2020 committee or its representative, would they be nimble enough? Say DOT came up and said, "Hey, we got $80 million. If you'll match us 20." Will this committee be able to change its mind like that and say, "All right, we're going to take $5 million out, instead of building sidewalks, we're going to use it to 4-lane 319 from the courthouse to the county line because this grant opportunity came up"?
Well, I don't know. I can't speak for the committee, but we have thrown it around, and there is because we've stayed apprised of what we've been working on. Everybody on the committee knows as much as I do about it, and I think there's some leeway there, but we haven't. Before we hear that from DOT, as soon as we hear that from DOT, I'll pose that question to them. But that's that's awfully compelling. Personally, if we were going to try and do something like that, I think what we're going to need to be looking at is from East Ivan Road down to Flatwoods Bridge. That's the section I think that we could cut out and get the most bang for our buck and start returning, get some return on our investment, with additional commercial development and more shopping choices, and keep a few more tax dollars down here.
One more question. These Highway 319 intersections, are these actual numbers what it would really cost, or is this some percentage of that total cost? Flotsam 319, it said $667,000. Is that the total project cost?
Those are project costs that Allen Wise worked up for us.
So that's not assuming a match from DOT or nothing like that?
No, those are actual project costs. Yes, I'm sorry. Didn't quite understand what you were asking me. Any more questions?
I think Mr. Stewart had a question.
You need some attorney help, it sounds like. I mean, it would have helped for y'all to have somebody looking at this Florida statute, because I'm with Randy. I don't think you're going to be able to use it for sidewalks.
Well, that I don't know. We need to do that. We need to get
forward, John. You're going to need some legal help. Mm-hmm. And I think what Randy was alluding to about administrative costs is that somewhere you guys are going to have to figure something in there. I mean, we can use Heather, but that's cost. That's cost to the county.
Still a real cost.
Yes, mm-hmm. And that her time is, she don't give away her time. So,
and we've tried to, not use that much.
Okay.
Maybe not enough.
And I think you need. It's too bad you don't have an attorney on this list of. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's somebody you need to think about adding. I'm just saying. Mm-hmm. The other part is the accountability factor. This is a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Sure is.
And I love the idea of it being removed from us and you guys doing it. But there's got to be some oversight. I haven't thought through that whole process. I trust all you guys, but these names are going to change over time. But where's the accountability? I guess I'm asking the attorney to help.
Well, I think as John and all of the people who have really led this charge have envisioned, is the Wakulla 2020 committee goal was to develop and prioritize projects, getting it on the ballot, and then once the ballot initiative passes or fails, you all would come back and hopefully in conjunction with City of Sopchoppy and the City of St. Mark's create a political interlocal authority that may look different than the 2020 committee.
That makes sense.
I think, again, our neighbors to the north, they had a prioritization committee, and then they also had let's call it an implementation committee.
What I see-
separate entities.
What I see happening is because the board changes every so many years, the whole idea of the accountability is the citizens, when they start crying about whatever you're doing that they don't like, they're gonna go to somebody. It's not gonna be us because we're out of that loop. And we won't have I mean, you're all by yourself, this committee or whatever we're going to call them that's going to finally work this thing. That's all I'm concerned. Let's make sure we thought through all that process down there, because I hope this passes. I hope it don't put our 1 cent sales tax that we have in place behind jeopardy. That's the only concern I have. And when it comes time, I'm hoping that committee is going to get behind us, because I think they know and understand how important that existing 1 cent sales tax is to this county. Because if we lose it, we're up the creek. I mean, literally. If we lose chicken wire boat, and it's going to be ugly. So I hope this will pass, and I hope you guys. I mean, this sounds good. If you're not able to do the sidewalks, I'm hoping you're able to put more of that money somewhere else. But
I agree with everything you just said. But if the 1 cent sales tax doesn't pass, that committee is going to be at the purse strings of the only road improvement money we have in this county. That's what scares me to death.
I agree.
Other than the gas tax.
And I hope we can't bond. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not, and then the money for the library goes away. We're not here to argue about that. I appreciate the presentation.
Yeah.
When does ballot language have to be finalized, and when are we going to see a first draft?
Well, my plan would be for you all to consider ballot language at your July meeting.
Okay. And have you put a timeline for when these projects would be actually started and completed? Because I think the public, they're going to get their, if they support it, they're going to be expecting to see these things, and if it's going to take 10 years, they need to know it's going to be 10 years.
Well, I don't really, and that's an impossible question to answer. But day after tomorrow, we're going to go meet with DOT, and they're going to, turn on another light bulb. But I do know that I just heard here just a couple of weeks ago that they had a special election over in Walton County. They wanted a new bridge across Choctawhatchee Bay for whatever reason. They passed a citizens initiative like this, and DOT, from what I understand, has already agreed to fund them. And they're going to, start, going into design work now. And the response that we've had back from DOT has been, words like, we love, counties or, government bodies with bold and innovative ideas of ways to solve our problems. So, that's a tough question to answer, but no, I think most of the work
DOT doesn't, volunteer funding, and you're counting on the tax revenues and the bonding, whatever, then there should be a timeline. If you speed it up, great, but if,
faster is better. Because, if you, especially along 319, if you do that faster, then you're going to encourage some additional commercial development along 319, which is going to give us a few more shopping choices and a few more tax dollars down here. So that's something you'd want to do really quick. Now, those priority 2 projects, it's the last thing you're going to do more than likely. But no, it behooves you, I would think, if it passes and once you get it all set up and you do your bonds, to spend it as fast as you can, and matching it up with grants. But it is really important to double your dollars and match it up with grants. Some of the talk with DOT has been even better than that. It's been 75-25. So
I'm just suggesting
it's a real dynamic situation.
Well, but you can still, put some kind of a reasonable timeline out for the public and the board and other people to be aware of before this goes on the ballot.
I think that we should be able to get, come around to some sort of a timeline, as it's developing. We've got to make sure we're going to get there first, But I would anticipate that, with the response from DOT, at least on the big portion of the project, being really fast.
And one more thing, John, just so you know, I reached out to Walton County and I have all of their educational materials and stuff to pass on to you.
Okay, good.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Our last announcement for this evening is an acknowledgement of first responders course completion by Chief Mike Morgan.
Should have been first.
Thank you, Commissioners. Before I introduce the person who's actually going to give you the information, I would like to acknowledge the fire chiefs. Chief Darcy unfortunately had to go to protect some of our property during the meeting, but Assistant Chief Aaron from Station 6 and Chief Russell from Station 7 are here. I think that's all that I see right now, but Jerry Johnson will be actually doing the presentation.
Thank you again, Commissioners, for allowing us for a few minutes to recognize the newest first responders to Wakulla County. This is a group of students that took about 56 hours of their time throughout several weeks to complete this class, and they're able to reach out and help the citizens of Wakulla County. 40 hours of it was the first responder class, and 16 we added into it for extrication, where we spent one of the days out actually disassembling cars with some of the tools that we've got that y'all have helped us get through our county. All right, first person I'd like to bring up is Joan Aaron.
Can you give us her last name too?
Joan Aaron.
Okay.
Lindsay Bennett. Jesse Embleton. Deborah Murphy. Eric Wells. We had one other one, Glenn Swan. He's unable to be here tonight. That'll do it.
Very good.
Thank you all very much.
May I offer, in addition to my congratulations, Jerry and Chief Morgan and Jessica, may I offer a suggestion? First, I apologize to y'all for having to wait so long. And when these are scheduled, if we could try to schedule them for meetings when we don't have a lot of public hearings, and also put you first on the announcement list or awards list, because I know it's hard for them to sit here all this time. No, they don't.
I've learned I need to pay Katie a little bit more to get up higher on the agenda.
Anyway.
We're going to actually do two things out of order. I know I had said we'd do citizens to be heard next, but instead we're going to do the consent agenda, then we're going to take a break, then we're going to do citizens to be heard.
Consent agenda.
I have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Any opposed? All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break.
Ms. Arts?
Yes.
I'm going to go get my checkbook. I wrote it on my hand.
Okay.
$100 check. I didn't forget.
Okay.
I'll make it up.
Could we call the meeting back to order?
Thank you, please.
Let them know the stand outside the door, let them know we're back in. Our first citizen to be heard this evening is going to be Miss Jenny Brock.
Jenny Brock, 311 Old Magnolia Road. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I'm making this announcement for Mary Cortez, who we weren't sure could get here by 6:30. However, she did, but then she had to leave. She just wants me to ask you to remember that the Thursday, June 7th presentation with Barbara Peterson is at the library, 7 p.m. Barbara is the president of the First Amendment Foundation and this meeting is, of course, at the Wakulla County Library. Following Ms. Peterson's presentation to the general public, we will have a question and answer session for all interested citizens or county staff involved in public records. Everyone is invited to join us there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Howard Kessler.
Evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Howard Kessler, 251 Levy Bay Road. I'm speaking to the Wakulla 2020, and I'm speaking especially to Florida Statute 212.055, parentheses 1. I agree with Commissioner Merritt. I don't see where this can be used in the way that many of those projects that were presented or portrayed to be presented can't move forward, and I don't think they will move forward. That being said, I think this process is a little backwards right now on the rush to get this on the ballot, the half-cent sales tax. You, the board, have not had the opportunity to adequately have a prioritized list and then to analyze that list. And I feel very strongly that you as a board should not be moving forward to put this on the ballot before you have had adequate and thorough analysis by the board on these projects. You also should be workshopping these. Once the priorities are set, then there should be workshopping throughout the county, and then an additional analysis of the board. To rush the half-cent sales tax, placing it on the ballot now, without doing that analysis, is not the best thing to do. I think the citizens have been taxed significantly over the last, especially 10 months. They are going to want you to do that analysis. They are going to want to have a say in this process, and they're not getting it. So again, I would urge you to take a step backwards. This can go on the ballot later, and do a thorough analysis before moving forward and placing this on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chuck Robinson.
Chuck Robinson, Chairman, Wakulla County Chamber of Commerce, Government and Commerce Committee, Chamber Liaison to the Wakulla 2020 Committee. Commissioners, on behalf of the Wakulla County Chamber of Commerce, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Wakulla 2020 Commission for their commitment and hard work putting forward a plan that will guide future road and bike ped projects that creates a safer, more accessible Wakulla and spur economic growth. The Chamber would like to recognize Andrea Carter, R.H. Carter, George Green, Dan Henchy, Pat Jones, Tim Jordan, Paige Killeen, Linda Langston, Jackie Lahan, Zoe Mansfield, Jared Miller, Byron Price, and Michael Weltman. The Chamber would also like to thank Kevin Vaughn for organizing and crunching those numbers. We thank Alan Wise for going above and beyond the Wakulla 2020 Committee's demands in creating dozens of maps and calculating the costs involved no matter how big or small the projects were. Chamber also recognizes the early legwork of Paul Johnson and Ralph Thomas in bringing much of this plan to fruition. And of course, none of this would have been possible without the vision, commitment, and laborious work of John Schuff. John has been the leader of this process since the very beginning and has moved the plan along at a heroic pace, spanning over a year and a half. The demands on him have been high, but John has risen beyond the bar of expectations. On behalf of the Chamber, thank you, John. Finally, the Chamber would like to take this opportunity to remind the Commissioners that we are in full support of the projects set forth by this plan. The Wakulla 2020 plan has a long-reaching scope of creating positive economic impact for businesses in the county, as well as improving the quality of life for our citizens. As such, the Chamber urges you to adopt Resolution 1217 and begin the process of placing a proposed initiative on the November ballot to fund the Wakulla 2020 plan. Please join the Chamber's belief that it should be up to the citizens of our great county to decide if the Wakulla 2020 plan is our future. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes citizens to be heard. Up next on our agenda this evening are planning and zoning agenda item, change of zoning application R12-3, Louis Cerno.
Can I swear somebody in?
Yeah.
sorry.
Let me do a few procedural things. This is a quasi-judicial matter. This is the first of 2 hearings you're going to have on this, so you will not be voting this evening. However, in accordance with Section 24.01 of the County Code, each commission member needs to disclose any contact they may have received from any interested party, their representatives, or any lobbyists regarding this application.
I listened to the presentation and discussion at the Planning Commission, and I went to the site. I did not have an opportunity to meet with staff before tonight's meeting. I'm sorry.
I have none.
None.
Talk with staff today.
Thank you. Will the applicant and any other person who is going to provide any information on this application please stand up to be sworn? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Louis.
We need a motion first, don't we, to conduct the public hearing?
He's going to very briefly explain.
Briefly. Yes, this is the first of 2 public hearings. Just briefly, it is an application to change zoning from agriculture and semi-rural residential to C2 on an 18.93 acre parcel on the east side of Crawfordville Highway. The subject parcel is located in the general vicinity of Wakulla Equipment Rental and Happy Times Daycare, and it's at the address 1721 Crawfordville Highway. There was a comprehensive plan amendment in May 2009 that changed this parcel to commercial. Staff is supporting this because it does make the zoning consistent with the commercial future land use designation.
Make a motion to conduct the public hearing and consider adoption. I assume you were done, Louis.
Yeah, I was just going to mention the Planning Commission recommended in favor of this.
Sorry. Conduct the public hearing and consider adoption of the proposed ordinance amending the official zoning atlas, amending the zoning district from Ag to RR1 and C2. From Ag and RR1 to C2. Consider any findings of fact includes all made by the board and any evidence submitted at the hearing hereon, and adopt the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to conduct the public hearing. Any citizens here to speak tonight?
But I know they are.
Chuck Hess.
Only 2 that got sworn in.
I got you on this one, Bob. Chuck Hess, 112 Lake Ellen Circle. This is not the first one I've been against, so I'll reiterate that this is 319. This is our corridor to Tallahassee. We're trying to develop a town center. I don't think we need to keep putting commercial all the way up 319 and then promoting commercial activities up in this area. At some point in the future, it might be a good place for having something, but right now, we need to focus our commercial activities into south of Mike Stewart Drive in that area of the Crawfordville. Thank you.
Robert Roddenberry.
Robert Roddenberry, 267 Curtis Mill Road, Sopchoppy. I am the agent for the owners of the property, Mr. and Ms. Kenneth Smith. I would just remind you that this has been through a comp plan amendment, went all through DCA. The current owners have no development plans for the property. They just want to be able to sell it as commercial property. It does lend itself very well to commercial activity. I know there's been a lot of talk about the town center, and you want to center everything right in the town center, but this is 19 acres of land almost, and there's no current use for it, but it would be ideal for a big box store. And I don't think you want to see a Home Depot or a Lowe's or something like that right in front of the courthouse. I think you'd have more opposition to that than you would this. That being said, and I would say that the Planning Commission has approved this. It will bring the property into compliance with the comp plan. Thank you for your time.
This is one of the very few pieces that's future land use commercialized, so there's not many of them.
That's right.
Any additional comments from the board?
Yeah.
That was just passed in the, just the
Well, they're still
previous
rare.
board. Yeah.
But, Louis, when it does come back, I guess, for site plan approval later, of course, I assume they'd have to access Whitlock. Does this butt up the Whitlock?
Pardon me?
Does the property butt up the Whitlock Way?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
So they could, or 319.
Not addressing this now, but of course, easements along 319, if you, just like we went through on the site plan, AutoZone.
Yeah, we would address access issues at that time.
Any additional comments from the board? All right, and we don't need to have a vote? Or do we need a vote?
Well, we got to conduct the public hearing, got to vote to conduct the public hearing.
Okay, so all in favor of the public hearing?
Aye.
Any opposed? No additional comments?
It'll come back at your July meeting for final consideration.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, request board approval of mosquito control grant funding to be led to us by Pat Juarez.
Thank you very much for allowing me to come up here today. Today's hat that I have on is your mosquito control director. As a reminder to you that if you're new to the board, every year we come to you as a requirement by Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services because they give you a matching grant, and they require that in July that we get signatures by the chairman that that you're going to be applying for the grant. Basically, is what it comes down to. And if you agree to the amount of money that's on there right now, you can still change your mind all the way up till October. If you decide you want somebody else to do it other than us, whatever you want to do, you still have that opportunity. But this is saying that you plan on applying for the matching grant.
I'm gonna make a motion for you, Pat. I wore that hat you got on now, and it was a happy day when I gave it over to you. So I'll make a motion to approve, accept the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services mosquito control grant funds of $18.5 and approve the $18.5 county match as proposed in the draft budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any cards?
I have a question for Andy. What job have you not held for the county?
There are very few.
I was never actually a county employee. I had Cleve's job.
Any further discussion from the board? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. Up next on our agenda this evening is request board approval to donate surplus fire apparatus to Tallahassee chapter of Guardians of the Ribbon Organization, Inc. Michael Morgan, Fire Chief.
Thank you, Commissioners. We have two fire trucks that have outlived their usefulness as fire apparatus. They were bought by the City of St. Mark's from the City of Tallahassee many years ago, and during the consolidation of all the volunteer fire departments, they became county property. They have both been replaced several years ago and have been sitting without use. Their value as fire apparatus does not exist anymore. The only value that they would have would be to sell them for salvage parts. This opportunity that has been requested by the board would give the trucks a new life to assist in a good effort of an organization that came out of the fire service called the Guardians of the Ribbon, that actually paints the vehicles pink. I think you've got some pictures on your agenda items for some of the vehicles that they've actually painted pink, and they tour the country with them. And it's staff suggestion that they be donated to this organization.
Move to donate surplus fire apparatus to Tallahassee chapter of Guardians of the Ribbon.
No motion is second. Any further discussion from the board? Any citizens to be heard? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimously. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Commissioner.
It's really nice. Moving on next to Commissioner items. Up first this evening is Commissioner Mike Stewart. Item number 16, removing the rumble strips on Rowinkle Road.
Thank you. I don't know if this was just an oversight or how we got with the rumble strips down in that area where it's so densely populated, but I know Mr. Claude Brown and some of his neighbors are here, and he's told me that if we didn't remove them, he was going to come live with me, and he's welcome to do that, but I'd rather he stay where he's at and be more comfortable in his own home. But I can see the problem. It's very densely populated on both sides of the road right there, and those things make a ton of racket, especially if you got rickety old trucks that go up and down through there, and And I've talked to Alan Wise and David, and they can be easily ground up, and it'll be no cost to the county.
Second.
Do that.
I have a motion and a second to remove the rumble strips. Is there any further discussion?
We went through this, I think, on Alexander Road. I was telling Mike earlier, right by somebody's house, and they said they couldn't sleep at night.
Were these just put in, or these were there?
Yeah, just put in.
Okay.
We have two citizens to speak to the issue. Mr. John Brown, Jr.
Well, you got the vote.
and Mr. Claude Brown. Both declined to speak this
John
evening.
Beaufort is coming to live with me, so that's all he wanted to tell you.
I believe they're there to help make sure that people don't run the stop sign. Is there any? I don't know if there's anything else we could do to help encourage that. I've seen there's been intersections in the county before where people run them.
I think it's the best thing we ever did, putting that stoplight there. As inconvenient as it is to some people, I think it's the best thing we could have done. And I think it's going to, the people who are still somewhat opposed to it are buying into it. Now, it's not.
Stop sign?
Yeah, it works great.
I think the flashing stoplight seems to be a good solution. Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Commissioner Arts, survey for Wakulla Gardens, Unit 1.
Thank you. At our last meeting, we approved mailing ballots to all of the property owners within Wakulla Gardens to assess their willingness to pay an annual assessment that would finance road paving. And that ballot's scheduled to go out in early July and will be tabulated near the end of July. And what I've drafted is a survey that would be sent along with that mailing, but only to the residents of Unit 1. And it's an opportunity to collect additional information about some of the preferences of residents in that unit. In particular, their willingness to do something different in the west part of Unit 1, which is the one that's much more developed, versus the east part of Unit 1, where there's no water and it's still very few developed lots. So there are a number of questions that this would look at. One is that distinction of whether they want to treat the different halves of Unit 1 differently. And then lower down on the first page is a question about, if you look at maps A versus B, is a question about if they really do want all the roads paved, how much interest and willingness to pay and a little bit more would they be in adding some east-west roads. And I've offered that because of the recommendation of someone who worked in Lehigh Acres, who said one of the easiest and most beneficial things you can do is break up those long straight roads. Plus, this would help with traffic congestion, as all of those people are going to have to go either north-south and then try to make their way west through either Mohawk or Sioux. This allows them to disperse a little bit more. So I would need help from Alan in trying to, and some of our county staff to refine estimates, but I'd like to know that there's willingness to proceed with this before I put a lot more work into it. The other is to see what the preferences are for the long-range development of the east side, the east part of Unit 1. And I've created a map that was an attempt to show the maximum amount of parkland that we could capture if we wanted to be really aggressive. And that's what is coming up on the board now. We could pave a lot fewer roads and instead create green space, places for picnic, maybe playground, fields for recreation. Also, a lot of this could be used for stormwater management, and that could help with some of the acquisition as well. Now, you could still maintain this concept and build out a lot more than I did, and so probably I would revise this to show more lots built out in the survey, but potentially this is how much we could really set aside if we wanted to. And I'm asking residents whether they like this concept and if it's something that they would like to have the county work toward, and would they be willing to delay the road paving to give us a chance to try and come up with money to start buying some lots. Because once we pave all the roads, we can't do this. And so in 2 years, if they vote to pave, in 2 years, all of this is off the table. And I think we should at least ask residents first before we just, plow ahead with something that's going to, in the end, I think, be less desirable than something like this.
I do see some merit to this, but the key word you just said is if they decide to pave. If they don't decide to pave, there's no need to send this. So I think this may be a little premature. Let's just wait to see what their results are. If they say, no, they don't want to pave anything, then this is a moot point.
But now when the mailings, this board's already approved expending money to do a mailing to all of Wakulla Gardens, and the cost of that mailing is not going to be increased by adding one more sheet of paper. There is going to be some copying costs. It'll be one page. It'll be one page double-sided.
This was confusing
one page.
To me, to be honest.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sorry if I didn't explain it clearly. It'll be one page double-sided, and these maps or something similar to that will be reduced and inserted into those spots. And that, I would love it color, but it could be done black and white and still make the point.
I meant the questions were confusing.
The questions?
Yes. About the Unit 1 East. There's lots of choices. And I don't think it'd be a huge expense if they voted to assess themselves to then, look, here's the options for assessing yourself. If you do this or this or that. But I don't know.
Well, I apologize that this came out late and you haven't had as much chance to look at it. One reason I wanted it to push for this meeting is so there would be time to continue. First, we need to update the lots that the county owns, the lots that the additional developed lots that I may have left off of that, to try and work out some of the figures a little better. And there's time to refine the wording.
Is there some sort of decision matrix in these questions where if they do this, you go to this, and then we arrive at what they want, or are they tied together somehow is what I'm asking?
Well, there is a progression that at one point I directed people, depending on a response, go to question 3, go to question 5, but I felt it was helpful to ask them all of everybody until you get to 7, and then there's one response says stop here.
I guess what my point is how do you glean some sort of useful information when we get these back filled out? Do we count?
Well, I'm happy to tabulate it. I can do a spreadsheet, and somebody can review it if they want, but I'm happy to do the bulk of the work on counting up what the preferences are, and I would do some analyses breaking out the west from the east to see, if it really makes sense to consider them as sort of two different units almost.
How would we handle this then? Would a citizen on Mohawk, for example, get the one ballot from the county that says, "Are you willing to pay to pave your road?" Okay, I finished this. Now I got this. What do I do with this?
Well, at the very first sentence it says, "Please complete and return both of the surveys in this mailing." So I definitely don't want them to return this and not the other.
I'm gonna vote against this, and I think you've got a good idea on this, Art, but we've already got this horse going forward, and if we send this out, I think we're just going to confuse the issue of what we've already done. So I will vote against this.
Well, I usually find that giving citizens a chance to express maybe their opinions a little more freely than is beneficial. I think we'll obtain some good information that could be helpful to our future decision-making. But I'm open to, yes, there are refinements needed, and I think that could be coordinated through a staff person or Heather or David or whatever. If you all wanted to suggest changes to this that could be given to them, to help refine this to something that you think would be more user-friendly. I can certainly pre-test it with different people in Wakulla Gardens to make sure people understand what they're answering and that the language is accurate.
I think it's going to be confusing. And I think you got some valuable requests in here for information, but I'm afraid it's going to confuse the issue. If I just looking at it, it's confusing somewhat to me. Yes, there's some valuable information that could be gleaned from this survey, but I'm curious to know who wants to assess themselves to pave roads. That's what we talked about doing, and now we're talking about buying lots, which I don't know where in the world we get the money. You've asked people here, would they be willing to put off paving until we found money, and I think I'm like Randy and Jerry, that if we wait a while and come back out, let's get this first survey done, come back, and then let's work on this and send this out.
That's
I know that costs money.
That's going to cost money. It's pretty inefficient.
I don't know, but I'm of the opinion, let's find out what they want to do about their road paving. That's what they're most concerned about out there.
And this has questions about road paving. For example, people who may say, I don't want roads paved, would be happy to have the roads paved in the front half and not the back half. And so you're giving them another...
I can't imagine anybody in there, if I live on the back half, I'm not going to say, yeah, pay the front half. I've still got to drive on the dirt roads to get to the front half that's paved. I want my road paved too. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I hear what you're saying, and
well, I'm willing to try and make sure that people can read this and not be confused by it, and to make sure they understand that they need to return both surveys. But I would really like to take the opportunity of, since we're doing a mailing to everybody's house already, why not ask them a few more questions?
I think it's a good idea. Again, I just think it's a little too much on the plate at one time. If they come back and say, yes, we're willing to assess ourselves, that's the key thing. If they're not willing, if their vote comes back and it's their choice and they say we're not willing to assess ourselves, there's no point in it. You know what I'm saying? If they are willing to assess themselves, then maybe we could take it a step further and say, here's a couple of options. Are you willing to pay a little more to get this? You know what I'm saying? So,
well, even if they say they aren't willing to assess themselves, I think to find out how they intend to use their land and how interested they are in having park is useful.
Well, it's kind of like saying, are you interested in having parks? Who's going to say no to that? That's like saying, do you like Wakulla Springs? Yeah, I like Wakulla Springs. Who's going to say no? So,
well, the people who want to develop or sell developed lots may say no.
It may be, but they may answer yes, Lynn, for selfish reasons too, because they want to sell their lot to the county. You may get some responses like that because it's going to go to the landowner, and if I got land over there that's, here's an opportunity for me to sell my land to the county, yes, I'm going to do it. And I think you'll get a lot of those kind of responses, yes, that aren't representative of what the people who live there. I just think we run the risk of too much information we're asking for when we're just trying to find out how to get going over there. This is valuable information. I'm not saying that. I just think we need to do one at a time.
I think that having more than one form in the mail will be confusing. But I am excited that our board is willing to consider moving forward with it after we hear back to see if there's any interest.
I agree with you.
It's an expense, but at that point we'll be spending. I don't know that it's an unnecessary expense.
Okay, then I'm not going to make a motion because it doesn't even sound like I'd get a second.
Can't win them all, Miss Sargent.
I don't win very many lately, I'll tell you. Cut me a break. This is an easy one. Stuff another piece of paper in the envelope?
Well, but
yikes.
If you get 2 forms and 2 surveys, I just think that leads to less people filling them out or being confused about what they're doing. I really do.
It's confusing.
You who think that people can figure out 2 different ballots, at election time, and now you think they can't sort out 2 different surveys in the same envelope? Anyway, okay, let's move on. Yikes.
Okay, next up is County Attorney. Any items? County Administrator, you have an item this evening?
Yes, I do, Tim.
Yes, Commissioner, thanks. This is just a housekeeping item. I'll be very brief. Medicaid is moving forward, as you know. Unfortunate for us, but it's moving forward. DCF has sent us a memorandum of agreement. The county attorney's looked it over. It's just basically granting access to staff, somebody that we pick, it'll probably be myself or somebody in our office, to verify addresses for Medicaid recipients, to acknowledge payments. I also wanted to update you. Last Friday we attended the ACA rulemaking workshop regarding the legislation from the bill that was passed regarding Medicaid, and I spoke there on behalf of the board. And I just wanted to give you an update on some of the items that we discussed and tried to get into the rule to try to, as John Wayne Smith said, unwind this bill as they passed on us. So I advocated for, meeting with us first to determine our overpayment. We've acknowledged, both agencies acknowledge that we have an overpayment there, so we want to clear that up before August 1st, before they certify our backlog. And we don't want that double counted. So I, I spoke to that. And just a bunch of other stuff that, we discussed with FACT the night before, about making sure that we can still use the revenue source of our choice instead of them just taking it out of our our half-cent revenue sharing, or half-cent tax in our revenue sharing. Also to allow us a one-time review of the bills that they're putting on us from the backlog, so we can verify that those recipients are actually in this county. And then there was just a bunch of residency stuff. Give us some opportunity to verify addresses, be more stringent in what addresses are allowed into the system, so we can verify them, like physical addresses instead of Crawfordville Highway. So those are some of the things that I spoke to at the public hearing. I just wanted to give you an update and let you know that that's moving forward. So that's it.
All right, thank you. Discussion item by Commissioners. Commissioner Stewart?
Pat, if you'll come on up. I don't know how many of you got calls, but I got a number of calls concerning the performance-based septic tank issue and the requirement, the inspection requirement, which is a Florida statute, a Florida law that it's not a county. I want to make sure the public understands that. I want Pat to explain that a little bit. But the disappointing part is that the letters that went out from the health department to the folks was sort of short-fused. I've talked to Pat about that. We're revising the letter. They got the letters and said they had 5 days to respond, or there was going to be legal action taken, or some, I don't remember what exactly the verbiage was, but it just seemed short-fused. A lot of these landowners bought these houses new with these performance-based septic tanks, and unfortunately the realtors and the people selling those properties, they weren't told that they had a requirement that was going to be coming up on them on this annual inspection. And then when they started calling to find out how much it was, it ranged from $300 to $500, and they're like, oh my God, what do I do? I only got 5 days, and I can't come up with $500 that soon to have it inspected. So I asked Pat to revise that. I just wanted him to get us up to speed. So if you get calls, you'll know what to say to the folks, and that it's not a county requirement, it's a state requirement. So go ahead and pick that up there.
Thank you very much. He is 100% correct. This is a state requirement. It's in the statute and the administrative code. It's a requirement if you have a performance-based system that we come out and we do annual inspections at each and every one of the homes that has one of those. From that, if there's violations, we have to generate a legal letter. I agree, again, 100% that in rereading the letter, our intent was poorly written. And what the intent was is that the homeowners just get a hold of us within 5 days to tell us what they plan on doing and how they plan on resolving the issue. Or if there's maybe extenuating circumstances, i.e. a good example would be that the home is unoccupied or it's in foreclosure, something like that, that there's no reason at that point that they would have to maintain the system because there's nothing to maintain. We have since revised a letter that says they have 30 days to come in compliance, but again, we're asking for the homeowners just to get a hold of us within 5 days so they can let us know what's going on so that we can keep them abreast, or if they have any other questions about it. So if you do get one of those letters, or if you get calls from someone, if they could just tell them to give either Keith or I a call, and we're glad to get it cleared up. The only issues that we require they get done that quickly is if there was a sanitary nuisance, i.e. there was surfacing sewage, and then they have to get that fixed immediately. But the things we're going out for is they're not, we weren't allowed onto the property to do the inspection. They don't have their maintenance entity up to date, something to that effect, or that the system was shut off and they need to get it turned on to make sure we can see that everything's working on it. So thank you for that opportunity to make sure that everybody knows that's what's happening.
Thank y'all for keeping up with it.
I think you have some other questions.
Sure.
Commissioner Moore, I think Commissioner Merritt.
Basically, I'm going to bring forward at probably the next agenda meeting, the state granted us, the counties, the option to opt out.
If I could give it,
Not of this. We can't.
but if I could explain what that is, that it is an opportune thing. House Bill 1263, there's a requirement that any county that has first magnitude springs in it are required that all septic systems, not just performance-based, in fact, performance septic systems are excluded from that because they are inspected. It's standard systems that they all be inspected. They gave an option out of that. They said if the Board of County Commission passes with a 60% vote that they wanted to opt out, they would not be required to do that. Counties that don't have a first magnitude, and that doesn't apply to you, so I won't. But if you as a board decide that you do not want to be a part of that, you need to have an ordinance that's passed by 60% that says you want to opt out of that specific part of that bill. That does not apply to the performance-based systems annual inspections that we perform.
I'll still bring that forward for the others.
I thought our attorney had talked about a timeline for us to look at that. Is that, am I remembering
Statutory
incorrectly?
timeline is January 1. You need to make a decision, either have...
Is it January 1 or... Okay, I believe you 100%.
So she's already talked about bringing something forward. Plus, this board needs to have good information before you do shoot from the hip kind of judgments. Julie Harrington thinks one of the major problems that we have is that there are 2,000 septic tanks that are pouring raw sewage into our groundwater. And so, before you say we want to get rid of it, it's a public health hazard to be putting raw sewage into water. So maybe we really do need an inspection system, at least until those 2,000 are working like septic tanks rather than just pouring out raw sewage.
Just to remind you, you do already have something on your books that already is a portion of your that is on your books, that if you chose to enforce it, you could go with that. But I'll leave that for the attorney.
That's a good point, Ms. Sarks. We could go a lot further protecting our springs by catching one or two wooden septic tanks that have failed than 50 performance-based tanks. And I said, Mr. Stewart's down. I talked to Keith briefly about this, but I was going to get with Eb, who's the state guy who certifies tanks. I don't know if you've heard anything or not, but I want to, is it possible to go in and, you talk about cutting the baffle out?
We have started those discussions with Dr. Roeder, and the discussions so far have been, and I'm sorry for those of you that don't know the performance-based systems, but there is a baffle that's in the tanks, and that keeps solids on one side and liquids all on the other. And if somebody was to go from a performance-based to a standard system, they would have a couple options. If they have a specific tank that has a slide-out baffle, then those would be allowed to be moved over. There are other ones where they actually pour the baffle in place, and that's an integral part of the tank. And he has said so far that no, that would injure the tank to the point that it would be structurally unsound.
That's what I want to talk to Eb about, is maybe go down to Brooks and cut one out and fill it with water and recertify it, because LB told me that they're the same, that the wall thickness. But anyway, I just don't work.
There's more proof that they don't work.
Here's what I'm working on is if an individual has a performance-based system and they say, I don't want to have a permit every year from the county or the state, I don't want to pay maintenance, try to make it where they can go in and retrofit that and make it a regular septic tank.
Okay.
You know, it'll work better than one that's off. They probably have to have drain fields. They had a drain field reduction, I assume. So, but, you know, they could spend several $100s, convert it back to a regular tank, and not have maintenance year after year after year.
If I could just circle back on the opt-out provision, I mean, your comp plan currently has a inspection requirement in there. To fully implement that, you'd need to put some more details in an ordinance. So we do need direction from the board on, do you want staff to spend time developing an ordinance to implement an inspection program, or do you want staff to develop an ordinance to bring back to you to opt out of the inspection program?
Is there any in between? Because my conversations with Pat have always been the septic tanks prior to like 1970 or whatever, ones that are failing are causing the big problems. Not necessarily one that was installed 2 or 3 years ago.
Right. I agree 100% with what you're saying, and that is that you have an option if you don't opt out. The state has already written the rules and said, here's the rules, you have to implement them this way. You have the other option, which is to opt out and go with your county ordinance, grandfathered in, and beef that up, much like what you're doing right now with the performance base, you know, where you're going to put performance base and that kind of thing. So you could change, I believe you could change your ordinance.
I would like to go with the county having the ability to make their own decisions instead of having to listen to the state tell us what we got to do.
I would like a presentation that has all the options and, you know, the pros and cons of each and whatever. And I think we'll get that better if we let staff bring it forward on the timeline they were going to follow anyway, rather than as a commissioner item.
I don't think I think staff's waiting to hear from us and which way they want to go, either to opt out of it and go with the county, as Pat has said that we can do.
Are you needing a straw vote tonight to whether to opt out? What do you need out of to move forward?
I mean, we weren't intending to bring this forward tonight. We can certainly bring it back, either Commissioner Moore or...
Yeah, bring it back and provide information that we can make an informed decision about what the...
Definitely go talk to Pat.
That would be helpful if you just gave me a little bit more time to work with her to give you some options and get you some correct numbers.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Yep.
Any commissioner items tonight?
I have 9%.
Oh, yep. Oh, excellent. I want to touch on the vote we had earlier today. I want to thank Randy again for all your work on that.
You're welcome, Al.
On that, it was really important. I'm hoping what's going to happen is that as it gets reviewed, the 2-3 vote will just get looked at for the better. So, but I appreciate all the hard work. I think
you have another chance to vote on it.
I do have another chance to vote on it, but I wanted to commend you again because I think what you did though was make it better for a lot of people. So thank you. Jerry?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Arts?
No, thank you.
Do you want to?
Adjourn.
Second.
Thank you all. The meeting is adjourned. I was going to give you the opportunity to plug.
Change my vote. I'm going to vote for